but looking at our schedule, it looks like we have a lot. But tonight, I do welcome each of you, and I ask you if you would like to join me in a moment of silence as we begin, please. Amen. And now we are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would, Kevin, if you would introduce our student who is going to lead us.
This is Lacey Edwards. She's a senior golfer at Seneca High School on the golf team.
Great, Lacey, thank you so much. If you'll just come to the center and.
The flag's behind you, unfortunately.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You know, we feel like all of our students are very special to us, but tonight we have two groups that are going to be recognized because of what they have achieved. The Seneca High School Girls Golf State Champions, and they were led by Kevin Paget, who's here with them tonight. Kevin, you want to go ahead and introduce and say a few words about them, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all so much. Thank you for inviting us. This was a very special team. This team has been together some for 6 years, and the majority of the team, we've been together for 4 years. So this is not something that happened overnight. Golf's a hard sport, and these girls worked very, very hard. So I'm going to introduce them now. I'm assisted by Louis Holloman. Many of you guys know Coach Holloman. He's retired, and he helps me out at the golf course. And he's worked really hard with these ladies as well. So, Coach, you can come on up here. And then we are led by senior Maddie Paget. And then we have senior Megan McConnell, senior Lacey Edwards. Then we have junior Hazel Martin, sophomore Ansley Bryson, and then freshman Skylar Martin.
So Coach Paget, if we could, we'd like to get the school board members to come down and take a picture with all you guys. Coach Holloman, Coach Paget, y'all get there too. And we'd like to get some pictures out on social media with the school board with you guys, and then we'll do one with the swim team in just a second.
Take some good ones.
Hey, man. Good to meet you.
I'm good.
We'll try to get that on our website sometime soon. So thank you guys, and congratulations. We also have with us tonight Coach Steve Burkhart, who coaches our swim teams. We've actually got 2 swim teams this year, but I'll let him give some details about the success of our swim team season.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. Thank you for making swimming a part of Oconee County and the schools and all the schools involved. But tonight we also have a team that's been together for a while. These kids have been on the swim team for 3 and 4, 5 years for Micah. And they've been swimming together for years before that. So I'm honored to have them here tonight. So we're led by Micah Zeller from Seneca High School, who was All-State for the 4th time this year, getting a 2nd in the 50 freestyle and 3rd in the 100 freestyle. And we've got Alex Burkhart, who's a freshman from Walhalla, who was able to get 3rd in the 500 freestyle, qualifying for All-State. And we also have Chelsea Burkhart, who is our first state champion in Oconee County, getting 1st in the 500 and also 3rd in the 200 free. Wow. So thank you for having us.
Congratulations.
Tell you what, can y'all, you swimmers, can you back up just a step so the board can step on that little the platform and then they can be seen? There we go. Good, thank you.
You know, it's just amazing to think that we, right here in Oconee County, have these state champions in girls golf in our swim team. So we are really, really proud of those students. And at this time, April Gabriel is here from West Oak Middle School, and she's going to give us some highlights of things that are going on this year.
Okay, for some of those of you that do not know me, I am April Gambrell. I'm the principal at West Oak Middle School. And just to give you a few things of what's been going on this year so far at West Oak Middle School. Each year we start the school year with Meet the Teacher Night. We also like to participate in the Apple Festival with our chorus and band. So we always like to showcase our students there. Each Friday morning we have karaoke with students and different genres of music. This is just a few pictures of our 6th grade science experiments and then social studies experiments that we've been doing on Fridays. We have lots of scavenger hunts with math problems with our 7th grade class, and then our 8th grade, they've been working with circuits and different experiments with Miss Mabry and Miss Cox. Our FCA was able to have our See You at the Pole. Our FCA usually sponsors this, and any community member that likes to come out, we had a good turnout. This is probably one of my favorite things that we have been doing. We are a unified school. So what that entails is our general ed population goes in with our intellectual disabilities class, which is moderate, mild to severe, and they have peer buddies during their adaptive PE classes. So they were able to go together to visit South Cove. So they had a nice little lunch and picnic. Our special education classroom that deals with behavior, emotional problems that they may have either at school or at home, they're able to go to Wild Hearts. And what this is equine therapy. So the horse actually chooses the student. So it is an awesome opportunity that our students have, and they go once a month. And if you didn't know who helps fund this, Dabo Swaney has helped us with some money for this program as well. Our 8th grade level group is a fun group, and about every other month they choose to have different spirit weeks. So this is just a picture of our crazy 8th grade teachers on the day that it was tie-dye day. Also, our advanced art classes, and Miss Ellis is present as well. She was able to take our students to an art field trip to Clemson, where they were able to participate in clay making, painting, and also glass blowing. Our FFA chapter is a big deal at West Oak Middle School, and our FFA officers were able to take around some elementary school students, so they were able to take different tours, and you'll hear more about FFA in just a minute. Our chorus classes, we were able to participate with the NCDA Honor Choir at Southern Wesleyan University. And this is just a pretty nice picture of our new football coach that we have, Coach Tony Robinson. And this is just how he has come to our school, and he has brought in the family aspect of working together. And one funny thing is, he actually worked outside of the school district, and he felt led that he needed to be in our school. So he is actually one of our classroom assistants for our behavior special ed class, and he is doing a phenomenal job. Ag in the Bag. We started this year in September, and our FFA officers have been going to different elementary schools and to our kindergarten classes. For September, the Ag in the Bag was apples. So each student was able to get an apple, and then they also had a lesson that the teacher would teach about apples, and then October, we had pumpkin planters. So they were able to color their planters, and then board members, if you will look, you have a little Cersei that I brought for you. It's a squishy turkey from the Turkey Foundation. And what's pretty cool about this is they actually posted something about our FFA chapter on the National Turkey Federation. So we got a little shout out for that. Fishing team. Even though it is district-wide, we have 19 anglers from West Oak Middle School just on the middle school fishing team. And they have been participating and they've already won 1 or 2 first place positions just for the middle school. So our anglers do a very good job on Saturdays. 6th grade teachers decided to rock our school, and you can tell that they had a lot of fun, a little more fun than some of our students, but our 6th grade's rocking the school for sure. This year, Miss Lyle's class, this is one of our intellectual disabled mild classes, so it's one of our functional classes. They have started a coffee business, and it is Beanie Coffee Business. So they prepare the orders, and we have to pre-order every Monday. So this is for faculty and staff. They can get anything from coffee to hot chocolate. We're trying to get in the Christmas spirit as well, even though it's not Thanksgiving. So hopefully we can have some holiday flavors soon. And this is just a few pictures of our pep rally and our percussion. Again, our chorus participated at Swoo Fest. We had some generous donations given to our school. So each grade level would be able to participate in a Roper Mountain science field trip. So each grade level will have a different time throughout the school year to where they will be able to go to Roper Mountain. Our volleyball team was 20-0. They went undefeated this year. They are the conference champions, and we defeated Powdersville in the conference championship. So we're pretty excited about our volleyball team. Our 8th graders were able to go to the Anderson Oconee Pickens Showcase, where they were able to find out about, they put that in there. They were able to go and find out about different careers, and we had a very good time with our 8th graders. And some of my 8th grade teachers thought it would be funny to National Hug Your Boss Day, so they came into my office. The National FFA Convention, we were able to send 6 of our officers along with our sponsors to Indianapolis for our national convention. And while they were there, they were able to tour the Churchill Downs in Lexington, Kentucky. They were able to go to an orchard. Also, they were able to tour Fair Oaks Farm, where they raise pigs and cattle. So they had a very good time. And if you'll look at the top right, that's our president, vice president, and our secretary. The one on the right is my daughter. So I'm very proud of that. They were actually tagged in the Oklahoma State University FFA page. So that was a big deal for our kids to be able to do that at such a young age. And they were able to come back and tell all kinds of stories. So we're hoping to continue this. A couple weeks ago, we were able to get Sydney Sullivan. She's a meteorologist from WYFF4. She came in to conduct a little 1-hour seminar with our 6th graders because we're learning about the weather. So she came in and we got a shout out on the Morning Buzz from Sydney Sullivan. So the 6th graders thought it was cool because they were able to see themselves on the news. This is our art students that were completing different artifacts and different flags for our Veterans Day program that we held. So we had a breakfast and a program where our chorus and band, and we had around 60 veterans and 40 students that were able to sit and have breakfast with their veteran along with enjoying the different musical pieces that our chorus and band did. Operation Christmas Child Shoeboxes, our FCA and our FFA officers, they decided to do this with for a community-based project, and right now we have about 55 shoe boxes. So we're gonna continue to do this for the next week or so. First quarter the highlights. Anyone who has a 93 average or higher in all their classes, I take them out to lunch. So for Q1, we were able to have lunch at Puerto Nuevo in Westminster. We also gave a little Cersei bag for those students who had perfect attendance, and we had 229 students who had perfect attendance, which we thought was very good for Q1. Also, we had 17 all-county chorus, and then 15 students that made all-county band. Tomorrow night from 5 to 6:30, those of you have a flyer right there for you, we are inviting you to attend our Family Fun Fest, and that will be from 5 to 6:30. And you can see all of the things that we're gonna have. Anywhere from animals are gonna be there, all types of math and poetry lessons, games, prizes, and everyone will leave with a book. Right now, I spoke with Dr. West, our literacy coach, sometime today, and she said we had 1,000 books that had been donated. So hopefully, everyone that comes tomorrow and the next day, we'll be able to give them a book. What's coming up in the spring? Those of you that were with us last year, you were able to see our Be Free vape session that we did. I'm not really sure what we will focus on this time, but stay tuned for this spring. And that's highlights of West Oak Middle School. You have any questions?
Sounds like so many exciting things going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, tonight is a special night. It starts a new year for us, and in it we have swearing in of newly elected board members. Now we have one board member who is returning, and then we have Mrs. Amanda Holder, who is newly elected this year. So if they will join
So
Dr.
Ms. Holder
Thorsley.
and Dr. Sloan, if y'all will join your family member down front, and I will come to the lectern and y'all can come over this way. There we go. All right. And I am going to recite the oath that South Carolinians who are elected to public office are required to take. And so I'll start with I state your name, and of course you'll say your name there. And then we'll go through the oath, and you'll officially take office for a second term and a first term. Okay, so Dr. Sloan, Ms. Holder, I state your name.
I, Sandra Sloan, Amanda Holder,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I am duly qualified according to the Constitution of this state
that I am duly qualified according to the Constitution of this state
to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected,
to exercise the duties of the office of which I have been elected,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
and preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. And at this time, since we do have a new board, officially, we don't have board titles, so I'm going to lead for just a second until you guys can possibly make some nominations and get officers set for this next 2-year term. So at this time, I would like to entertain any nomination to be the chair of this board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we nominate Denise McCormick to continue as our chair.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right, so I think Mr. Herring, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, and Dr. Ketterman, I think I heard a second? Yes, sir. Okay, all in favor of Ms. McCormick remaining chair of the school board? If you'll vote positively, all right. I think that's 5-0. So Ms. McCormick is obviously willing to do that if she voted for it. So I will turn the floor back over to her to continue.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And at this,
May I say something?
you certainly may.
Before you go with the vice chair, I respectfully request that my name be withdrawn as a possibility.
All right, so with that statement amongst us, I'm going to ask for if there are any motions for the person to serve as vice chair of for the next 2 years.
Madam Chair, I move that we, for Dr. Megan Ketterman for Vice Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other? All right, with no other nominations, all in favor, please? All right, 5-0. Congratulations, Dr. Kevin. Look forward to.
And I do want to say, Buddy, it's been a pleasure to serve under you as vice chair, and certainly it's been a pleasure to serve under Denise's role as chair, and I look forward to learning and being mentored in this role. So,
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. And if we could change the name right there, I would change chairs with you tonight.
And we have one more position. We do have a secretary. So at this time, if I would entertain a motion for someone to serve as secretary of the board.
I move that we nominate Sandra Sloan to continue to serve as secretary.
Second?
All right, with the motion and the second, any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Thank you. And so Dr. Sloan will continue to serve as our secretary, so congratulations. We appreciate that. All right, so the next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda for November 14th, 2022, work session and regular board meeting. Did anyone see anything need to be added? All right, then if there's nothing to change, we will approve that with no objection. And now is the time for public comment. So, Mrs. Bay, do we have some?
Yes. Kim Jackson.
Good evening, my name is Kim Jackson, like Sandy said. I'm here to discuss homeschool students being charged excessive and discriminatory fees. As of this year, Oconee County students, or homeschool students only, are required to pay a $500 per class per student fee for any activities that are held during the day. Many low-income students could not afford this fee, and one 14-year-old girl used her entire summer's work savings in order to pay for it. A total of $2,000 was collected from 3 students. Because this fee is discriminatory and it erects a financial barrier to many students, we believe it's in violation of the Equal Access to Interscholastic Activities Act. The position of this board and the superintendent has been that if an activity takes place during the day, it is not protected by the law. But the South Carolina Attorney General's office addressed this very same issue in 2012, and it has not been challenged for nearly 10 years. In the 2012 opinion, they define what is meant by interscholastic activities, and he first quotes equal access law. It says, the term interscholastic activity includes, but is not limited to, athletics, music, speech, and other extracurricular activities. He explains further, the law clearly intends that any extracurricular program with no limitation on those that offer school credit or do not offer school credit must allow access to homeschool, charter school, and governor school students. These include band, orchestra, chorus, theater, dance, and speech. And that fishing class looked pretty good too that she was talking about. He is addressing the exact same issue that brings us here this evening. He does not use credit or daytime, time of day, as a determinant of the interscholastic definition. And orchestra is specifically noted for access. Our legislature was promoting the opportunity for all South Carolina students to reach their full potential, as we also should. He states the goal of this law was to allow for, rather than restrict, participation by students. He concludes by referring to the educational benefits for the student and the financial bargain for the state that homeschooling represents. He says, lastly, the benefits of the educational opportunities for the children must be weighed against the minimal financial impact to the school from students who would otherwise have the right to attend on a full-time basis. There are nearly 30,000 homeschool families in South Carolina right now that pay local and state taxes to support public education, and we're content with only a few small opportunities for participation under the Equal Access Law. Access benefits both the homeschool student and the county programs. My daughter Sarah, who's back here, played in a beautiful veterans performance on Friday. This excessive fee is like the old poll tax. It's a barrier that restricts or denies participation by certain groups, but especially those of low-income families. I've provided this information to the school board and the district superintendent numerous times. My first email was in August. I came here tonight to read these passages because I know you all are very busy people. And you might not have had time to actually read that Attorney General's opinion, which I think Sandy passed out tonight. We are respectfully asking that you vote as a board to remove this fee from the protected activities and reimburse the 3 students who were charged. I'd like to end this on a personal note. My husband and I are both former military pilots, and my husband's now a 767 captain with FedEx. Without homeschooling, my children wouldn't see my husband because of his challenging schedule. Additionally, we have 4 daughters adopted from China. When my then 5-year-old came home in 2008, she could not attend school because she had many life-saving surgeries, including open heart. So she couldn't attend school. And lastly, my 11-year-old came to America without any knowledge of the ABCs, English, and she had extreme academic delays, and despite being very bright, she needed one-on-one teaching. She was in middle school age already. You see, in some places in China, orphans and the disabled are considered to be unlucky, and so it's difficult to find a school that will even allow them to attend. But this is America, and we care about all children being able to reach their God-given potential. As a young family with 6 children, we could have never afforded this fee. Dr. Sloan, I was glad to read this statement that you made in the Seneca Journal last week. You said you cared about every single child. And as a minority, your vote has been marginalized. Your voice has been marginalized. And you want to avoid that happening to others. I'm asking you to please remove this fee. Thank you.
David Dial.
Hi folks, my name is David Dahl and I live in the Richland Community, District 4. I just want to say, my kids last went to school when across the street when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So I haven't been in a school here in a long time. But I had the opportunity, the privilege and pleasure of being the guest speaker at the Veterans event at West Oak High School. And I'm going to tell you right now, just from Nikki Belch, she did a wonderful job. It was very patriotic. I walked into the visitors area, checked in. I was asked, one of the young girls there, she was asked to lead me to the cafeteria. We chatted. She was just extremely nice. To the young folks that signed me in, they were all wearing Future Farmers of America outfits, you know, and that was well represented. To the breakfast staff, the breakfast was wonderful. To the staff, including the custodial, they were at the main entrance, and it was raining, you know, cats and dogs that day, and they were making sure that floor was kept fall-free, clean, efficient, and just a well-done patriotic event that anyone in this country would have been proud to be at. So I was proud to be at it, and I just want to tell everybody, thank you for having that.
Thank you. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
Dreama Berry.
I want to pass.
Okay. That's it.
All right, at this time, we'll move on to our approval of minutes. You have received the minutes from the October 10th, 2022 work session meeting, and also the October 17th, 2022 regular board meeting. Did anyone see any changes that needed to be made on those two sets of minutes? Okay. Then the minutes from October 10th work session meeting and October 17th regular board meeting will be approved with no objection. And at this time, it's time for discussion items, and Dr. Thorson, I think you're going to introduce our first one.
Sure. Mr. Mulder is here. I'm the city administrator from Seneca, and I wanted to talk to you about the Seneca Middle School facility. Turn it over
Thank
to
you, Dr. Fullerton. Good evening, members of the board, members of staff. Thank you for having us here. My name is Scott Mulder. I am representing the city of Seneca as their city administrator this evening. I'm accompanied by our distinguished mayor, Mr. Dan Alexander, the muscle behind the operation of the city of Seneca. And let me first start out by saying how nice it is to be at one of these meetings and be on this side of the dais for once. So I certainly understand the being in that position on that side. So it's good to be on this side for once. I am here tonight to present the city of Seneca's desire to discuss future ownership of the current middle school property. Thank you, first of all, for your investment into the community as a whole across the county with new facilities. We all know that brick and mortar does not educate our children. It's the teachers and the staff that play the most important role in educating our children, and I believe we have some of the finest across this county. I've got three kids of my own that have come through here from elementary all the way through graduation. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for the teachers and all the hard work they put in, and hoping that we have a brighter future in educating our children. The current Seneca Middle School site for decades has served the community through educating our children and providing a place for our families to be part of the community. I'm here tonight to formally request that property continue to serve in that role. The city of Seneca has an interest in that property. I have, through casual conversation, presented that interest in the past, but it was advised that I come and actually make a formal presentation by Mr. Hamby and Dr. Thorsland. So that's my intent tonight. Our goals for that site is to continue to serve the children of this community through recreational activities. As you know, our Shaver Recreational Complex borders that property across the East Perkins, or one of the Perkins roads. So we would have an interest in continuing to provide recreational services by expanding the Shaver Complex onto that site. The specific portion of the buildings that we are interested in is the gymnasium. We've had over 500 students already sign up for basketball, recreational basketball, and having enough gym space and time to accommodate the number of practices and games for that number of students is becoming even more and more difficult. So the gymnasium, we feel, is a very critical component to the expansion and continuation of recreation. We also hope to cater to some of the senior citizens in our community through pickleball activities. We constantly get requests for pickleball facilities, which that facility would be perfect for that use. The problem that many of them have is we have outdoor facilities at South Cove and other areas, but during the high heat of the summer and the extreme cold of the winter, there's no facility that they can actually play in. So this would be at a conditioned space that we could actually offer that service. There's also support buildings that adjoin the gym that we would be interested in using, and that is the band room, the locker rooms behind it, the chorus room, and I believe there's some science wing adjoins the side of that property we would be interested in using for community space. Those are the areas. The rest of the building, frankly, we wouldn't have a use for. Our intent would be to actually demo those properties and expand field activities on the lower field as well as on the upper field. So that's kind of our goal. This has actually been on our radar for quite some time. I know this middle school has been discussed for many years. So through those discussions, my mayor and council have discussed, are there any available uses to expand recreation? And there is on that site. We've actually included that property into our master planning. We actually completed a recreational master plan about 4 years ago, and we actually identified that in our master plan just for future planning, not because we thought we were gonna get the property in any way, but we felt like as we're going through the master plan, if that property were to be made available to us, how would we actually incorporate that? So we've actually included that into our master plan. So this has been a discussion at the City of Seneca for quite some time. So I'm here tonight to respectfully request that the board give us a consideration for future ownership of that site. And our intent, again, would be to use it for continuing to serve the children and families of this community through recreational opportunities. Available for any questions that the board may have for tonight or, in the future as well. Okay.
All right, we appreciate you being here tonight.
Madam
Thank you very
Mayor,
much.
do you have anything you'd like to say before I step out? Okay.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. All right, and now, Dr. Thorson, it's time for our superintendent's report.
Okay, and I just wanted to update you. I know you've received a lot of emails that Ms. Jackson referred to, and I wanted to just kind of publicly talk about the School District of Oconee County's policy regarding homeschool students. Statewide, students are basically, the state law requires that homeschooling is certainly an option in America. That's open. And I think y'all would share my view that we want students to be educated to just the highest level possible. And whether that be at home, in a private school, in a charter school, in a public school, as long as education's done well, I want to be supportive of that. But the state of South Carolina does have a situation where students choose to homeschool or to attend public school. And in most, I think I can confidently say most, because certainly in our neighboring districts, students are given a choice. You're homeschooled or you're public schooled if you don't choose private schools. Our board, a previous board, passed a policy. It's IHBG. That does have some exceptions to just that separation of homeschool versus public school. So Ms. Jackson referenced the Equal Access Law. A lot of people would call that the Tim Tebow Law. That's kind of where it gained its popularity because Tim Tebow, the very famous quarterback, was a homeschool student in Florida when he played public school football and then, of course, got the scholarship and went on to win the Heisman and all that. So we have an equal access law that says in South Carolina, homeschooled students, charter school students, and students who attend the governor's school can participate in interscholastic. That's the term that the law uses most often is interscholastic, but then it also references extracurricular in the law as well. So those two terms say that if a student's homeschooled, they can compete in activities that would qualify as interscholastic and extracurricular. And I guess I just want to point to the definition of those two terms. Interscholastic would mean between schools. So not just at one school, that would be intra. Inter would mean schools competing or participating in activities together across schools. And then extracurricular means over and above the curriculum of the school. So outside of just the normal curriculum. We certainly comply with that law. We allow students to participate in sports, marching band, different activities. But it is outside of the typical school day because our extracurricular and interscholastic activities almost always happen outside of the school day. our district, that policy I referenced that's on the front of the agenda for tonight, IHBG, it does allow for homeschool students at the middle school level and the high school level to take classes in certain situations. And again, I would define those as curricular options, not extracurricular options. And those, for middle school, it's just fine arts classes, performing arts classes. And then at the high school level, we allow 3 different choices. We've got the performing arts classes, AP classes, and Career Center classes. Those are all 3 groups of classes that it's kind of hard to get the same experience in homeschool, and I think there's been a recognition of that in the past, and we've opened the door. But it does call for a fee to be paid. That fee did go up a little bit this year from last year. We've been charging a fee for this, and that is because when a student who lives in Oconee County chooses to homeschool instead of attend public school, it does take away the funding stream we get from the state for that child. So we get, and I'm just going to use some big round numbers, but it'll make the math a little bit easier. Let's just say our budget is $100 million, which it's close to that. About 60% of that comes from across the street, local taxes, and we fully credit any homeschool family for that 60% or $60 million. But we get about $40 million from the state government. And those are the funds that we do not get for any homeschool student that enrolls in our district. So that $40 million, if you divide it by 10,000 students, which is roughly what we have, that's about $4,000 in state funding we get per student. At the high school level, middle school level, they take the equivalent of 8 classes, 4 each semester. So take that $4,000, divide it by 8, and that's where the $500 fee comes from. Those are, again, round numbers. We rounded down. I think the number's a little bit higher. We did round down on that. But that's where the fee is based. In Anderson or Pickens, if a homeschool student goes to the school district office and asks to take a class, the answer's just no, you can't. Our policy is more open than a lot of school districts in South Carolina. So I would contend that in no way, shape, or form are we violating the equal access law. An argument can be made that maybe the fee should be smaller. I'm open to that. We had a productive conversation a week or 2 ago about, maybe if there was a family that was homeschooling and, had a problem with the fee because of, the family income level, then, maybe there'd be a way to show that and we could have a reduced fee. I would certainly be open to that, but I would just deny that the school district of Oconee County is breaking the equal access law. We're not. We have many students participating in our interscholastic and extracurricular activities. The one thing that Ms. Jackson referenced with the Attorney General's opinion, there could be certain activities that I think an argument could be made for practicing during the school day. And I'll give you an example that comes to mind, and I really think that the Attorney General's opinion had to do with this, but in junior ROTC, if we had a junior ROTC class and they had a drill team or a team that carried the flag at sporting events, which is extracurricular outside of the school day, if all the members of that drill team or the group carrying the flag, marching in with the flags, if they all practiced during second period, and that's the only time they practiced, it was all during the day, well, then for a homeschooler to participate in that, they would have to be there. So in order to participate in the drill meet, you'd have to be at school during the school day in order to be a part of that team. Otherwise, the access would not be, you wouldn't be fully allowing access. So I could see certain situations. We do have, and I've talked to Dr. Ketterman and Ms. McCormick about this, we are going to need to look at revising this policy because in the last, 5 years or so, we've started, some of our high schools have had some sport-specific PE classes. So at West Oak High School now, there's a volleyball class that happened during the first semester. Different sport-specific classes where students who participate in that sport oftentimes, take the class. So we need to look at that, and ROTC, I think, would fall in that group of classes. We need to open PE as a fourth group that we would consider. But for the majority of our classes, participating during the school day is really a separate part from the interscholastic or extracurricular aspects of that law. Again, very limited exceptions to that might occur, but marching band, for example, a student could fully participate in marching band without being in the class during the school day, because our marching band practices are exclusively after the school day. So that's not denying a student participation in the interscholastic portion of that activity by charging a fee to take the class during the school day. So again, happy to discuss and have room for maybe changing the policy a little bit, and certainly ultimately I recognize the 5 of you control that policy, and am happy to make changes however you would wish. But I do feel like saying that the school district of Oconee County is violating the equal access law is just wrong. So.
So I think at this time, we'll continue to evaluate it and look at that policy and see what we need to do in the future with it. All right, Mr. Schickling, at this time, we have our October financial report, please.
Okay, so for the month of October, we saw our first property tax relief Tier 3 payment, which I was happy to see come in for cash flow purposes to cover, monthly expenses and payroll. We've seen some local tax revenue come in, and continued monthly payments on the funding aid from the state. So roughly $6.4 million to the good on the revenue side. For expenditures, again, primarily payroll, and you see in the check disbursements, not a lot of activity from the general fund. So roughly 9.9 or $10 million in expenses. So again, there's a gap there where the expenses are exceeding revenue for the short term. Once we get our property taxes, we're going to see our available cash start to rise in the spring. On the check and disbursement report, you see the primary spending is out of the capital fund, where work continues on Seneca Middle, so pay apps are coming out of there. A little bit of spending in food service, as we've seen now our first full month's billings for September and October for our new group coming aboard, the nutrition group. And then the remainder of that is primarily energy and some technology subscriptions and insurances out of the general fund. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on the financial report.
Did anyone have any further questions about the financial report? All right. Thank you very much for that report. And at this time, Mr. Leroy is here to give us a report on the 2022 exit interview and information that I think we had requested earlier.
Thank you so much. So glad to be back with you, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about some general exit interview data that it's kind of a moving target. As folks leave us, we seek this information. So this is sort of where we are like today. But there are roughly 40 exit interviews that this represents. All attendance areas are represented, all content levels, and about 85% of our sites is represented in this. Originally, we had done this either in person or on the phone, but we have started allowing the link to be used as a Google form. Originally, our thought was if we give the link, they may or may not use it, but at the same time, certainly there are times where folks just don't provide the information as well. We do seek it a few times. We don't want to harass them for it, but we certainly do use it, I think, productively.
And so the items provided that you see here are the general portion, not all of what is represented, because there are some things that might violate some confidentiality things that we ask when we get specific to the person. But if you flip over, the first thing you see is just the job titles of the people that this report represents. You can just kind of see it's all over the place, cross-section of the district. The other questions are represented, and they're usually either, a range, like a multiple choice range of poor, fair, good, excellent, is how it's rated. So most of the rest of the questions you can see fall into that category. And if you consider, and of course I consider fair and poor on the negative side of that, everything else good and excellent is what we're striving for. And so with that said, you see that most of what you're going to see is predominantly and overwhelmingly positive, which is a good thing. The next page over talks about the your general overall work environment, how you would rate that. And again, you see that is a large percentage represented in a positive way. The benefits of the district is the only thing that has not been negative in any way. So that's been good and excellent across the board. So that's, of course, we're very proud of that as well. The pay has been a little all over, but for the most part, you see that that there is a larger percentage of folks that are satisfied with their pay in which they receive. I will say that the most part of what we see in some of the more negative reactions are from some of our support staff positions, not so much the certified. Then you also see some specifics about support at the school. The first one being the principal support is being overwhelmingly positive there, and you can see the numbers that are reflected otherwise. Also, from assistant principals on the next page over, you see that there are the same kind of situation where the lion's share is very positive. And then the last one presented to you today is the question, would you consider coming back to the district in the future? And with very few exceptions, that has been yes. And actually that has occurred a couple times, and maybe, down the line. So sort of like some teachers that do retire, we don't let them plant too many deep roots in retirement. We sometimes ask them to come back in certain spots. And so I know that some of the things that are not represented are items such as, for example, here are two questions that we ask that are very specific to the person. 3 things that the district could do better, or 3 things that the district does very well, and they really get into the brass tacks that would identify them in what they do. And so for confidentiality reasons, we didn't present it in this report.
In those things that you just mentioned, is there any specific area that needs improvement?
Sure.
Or that
So
you
I would say if I were to classify an area of overall improvement, the most common thing that came up was communication. And of course, that feedback is something that share with the leadership team, in which we've tried to address, with phone calls out, just making sure that we're over-communicating as best we can of key information. And so I feel like we're trying to address that in real time as we get them, but that's the most common thing. The flip side of that, the most common positive is child-centered, student-centered. That comes up a lot. And support staff and certified, I would classify that probably as our most common positive, and which certainly excites me. That's sort of what it's all about.
And we're happy to share those specific comments with you, but just without asking the employees if their information could be made public, we didn't feel like we should make that part of a public report, but you could see the information.
Mr. Leeward, I did have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that this represents roughly 40 interviews.
Yes,
So
right.
how are we choosing, and who are we choosing? Is it I know we can't make it mandatory for somebody who's leaving and they, might choose not to, but
Right.
are we asking every single person, regardless of if they resign, retire, or are terminated, to go through this process?
We are trying our very best to ask everyone. To say we've gotten all 100%, I can't say that for certainty, but the biggest thing that we found this past year, Dr. Ketterman, was at the end of the year, kind of the blast of we did lose, I think, more there, but there, it's the end of the year. Didn't come back for whatever reason, but we're trying in our office to make sure that we, again, we don't want to harass people, but we really want at least a portion of this information that is very helpful to us.
Sure.
Mr. Leroy, would we say this was at least half of the people that left?
No, ma'am.
Well, I do think pinpointing the ways and reasons why people are leaving is critical to
Sure, it is.
us
And we have
in the
taken,
district for
when those
employees.
things do come, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you,
it's okay.
But when we do, like if there is something like a red flag item, I quickly let the leadership know of a situation that needs to come to our attention.
Oh, the chart to me that probably, I guess, is most, well, at least to me, it's most important, and it says probably the most, is the very last one. 97% of the people that you interviewed said, yes, they would come back.
Right.
That
Yes, sir.
tells a pretty good story right there.
And a follow-up question to that, Mr. Herring, is in what capacity? So they offer it. So sometimes when we're in need of something, I look for that column to.
Are we capturing in our surveys the reason why they're leaving? Like if it's husband, do we have that tabulated?
We have it listed. It's just hard to percentage because it's so individual in nature, but we do have it listed as they provide it.
And I read through this afternoon, that was a short answer question. And I mean, it would be everything from my family's moving to I got a better paying job to, there were just all sorts of reasons. So if we did a graph like that, it would probably look like, that first one that had, 800 different reasons on there. So I'm not sure it would be very helpful to look at it in graphical form, but we can share those reasons with you and you can read through them and see what it is.
And I would argue that the majority of those are retirement type, moving away, type things. Any other questions?
Anyone else have anything?
We appreciate you coming
Oh,
tonight
thank you,
and
ma'am.
sharing that with us. Thank you. And now, Mrs. Simmons, our local board-approved courses, please.
Yes, we have 4 additional courses that, these are all from West Oak High School. Our other 2 high schools are looking at the information to determine if they would like to offer these courses as well. 3 of them are just our continuation of the honors yearbook editors. We approved level 1, y'all approved level 1 last year, so we're just continuing, add 2 and then 3 and 4. Miss Woodland at West Oak High School continued to teach that course. They've got a lot of interest in that, so I know we may have some of our other high schools also be interested. And then the other one is a STEM course for ROTC. This is a new requirement by the Army for ROTC cadets. It is full of STEM labs, integrating engineering practices, real-world applications, and opportunities for the students to build within teamwork and collaboration skills. And it also covers the use of drones and submersibles. So Elizabeth Crane, our math and science instructional specialist, reviewed this local board approved application with Dr. Witherspoon at West Oak High School. And our ROTC leaders will continue to keep track of students who are involved in this course. And that they've completed that STEM and the drone coursework. And another great thing is that the schools don't have to pay for anything. All the materials would be provided through the Army, so we think it'd be a really great opportunity to add that additional course for our ROTC cadets. And all of our applications here have all of the, kind of like the timelines for the courses, the curriculum, all that's included in all of these.
All right, does anybody have any questions? I suppose we'll continue this next month. So, if you'll just look over the material in the meantime, I know it's a lot of pages, but if you have any questions, we will take a vote on that next month. And now we have our next section of discussion, possible action items. And again, Mr. Leroy, some substitute incentive ideas.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the opportunity to share again a little bit, some data, and some ideas regarding substitutes. First of all, the handout that I presented to you, just giving some general data. I don't want to go through each and every one of these and read it for you. But we do now have over 200 active subs in our fleet, so to speak. Our average fill rate right now is about 76%. And by fill rate, what I mean is this is the percentage of needs that are filled. Pre-pandemic was pretty consistently 90%. We haven't been that way consistently since the pandemic. In talking to my AOP cohorts, this is very comparable to what they see as well. So we average about 19 uncovered classrooms per day across the entire district. And so that, that ebbs and flows. We have some wild variances there, from 0 to everyone's filled to one of our highest spikes was 52 on a day, and that was during the really most difficult so far week that we've experienced with the flu, all the sicknesses, the week of October 24th through the 28th. That entire week was difficult. So we're sort of seeing a decline in that since then, and we're excited about that, actually. And so in looking at ways in which we can inspire and hopefully try to encourage more precipitation rates from our subs, we did want to look at how we compare salary-wise across the AOC area, and we do quite well, actually. We lead in several categories, with the exception of being second when it comes to substitute nurse pay. But other than that, we're kind of leading the way, which we're very proud of. So sort of ruled out, the overall comparative, people choosing us versus Pickens. We've actually had some of that we've noticed recently. But and so we also looked at systemic things. And one of the big things that we're continuing to look at is phone calls versus texts, and some of the vendors that we're seeking information from for down the line. We do feel like that will help us, but in the meantime, we're trying to help subs identify the number that's calling them from frontline, because it doesn't necessarily say that. So we're trying to get our subs to look for that number, answer it, put it in your contacts, and hopefully secure those positions. So we're hoping to see it increases in there. So, but what I wanted to share with you this evening is possible incentives for the near future. We are currently tracking our fall 22 numbers in terms of how many days subs are working specifically. And what we're finding is that we feel like that if we can incentivize continual work in a monetary fashion is what we're after. Currently, we have 2 subs that have worked 60-plus days this semester. We have 14 that have worked between 50 and 59 days, and 18 that have worked between 40 and 49, and then 23 that have worked between 30 and 39. So looking at those numbers, we would certainly like to encourage or ask that in the spring of 23, that we potentially pay a $200 stipend to any sub that works between 45 and 59 days in the entire semester. And then for those that do 60 plus, we would like to consider a $300 stipend for them to encourage hopefully continual work. Friday's still our biggest.
Al, can you
those 23 that worked between 30 and 39 days so far, if we could get all 23 of those to work 45 days, that's 23 times 6 or more that we would add to our, covered days, which is what our goal is.
Is there an option to do a half day?
There is. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
we already have that in place.
For
And I was asking, Mr. Leroy, we do have, so like 144 is the most days that we can let anybody sub during a year, so that's why it's not, 75 or 80, because they can't do more than 144 days from October 1 this year till October 1 next year, or we have to consider them a full-time employee with benefits and that. So they're limited, and that's why we chose the numbers we did to incentivize.
Right, so we want to push the bottom number as high as we can, but we do have a top number because the Affordable Care Act requires that if a substitute does more than 144 days, then we have to offer insurance. And full family insurance costs the district it can cost like $24,000.
The family plan, I think our premium's around 13,000 for that one.
13
Yep.
is what, that's what the district.
Full premium, including that's the district's obligation.
Okay, so
Then with the employee's contribution towards their own, it's higher than
it adds a considerable amount to what we would pay, so that's why we capped the number at 144.
And we did look at, the potential of offering like a Friday bonus, but that really puts a big task on our finance department because we have to manually run, and I don't know the terminology. Jay would certainly help me with that, but it was just very cumbersome and very difficult, so that would kind of lean towards it.
Yeah, it was 700 days that somebody has subbed on a Friday so far. So that would require a person to 700 times modify their pay for that individual day, which would be a cumbersome task.
Yes, it would be. So we're leaning toward the incentive of.
If we can find a way to automate that, we may come back with that request, but right now it was going to be a bit too cumbersome. So I think essentially what we're asking you to consider, and it wouldn't have to be decided tonight, even though it's possible action here, we would like to try for 2 semesters this incentive bonus to see if we can get some of the current subs to sub more days and see if that helps us fill jobs more consistently. So we would at least do it for the spring and then next fall, and then next year at this time, we could bring a report to say, here's what it was prior to that. Here's what the incentive, not that we could say with 100% surety that's what the change was, but we may be able to draw some conclusions.
Well, I know just in some of my conversations at schools and with teachers, I know we've talked about this, some of their biggest concern is my planning period is being taken up. And, I remember those days and I needed a break. They all need a break. So I think this is a good option to consider.
May I ask a question? How are you going to ensure equal opportunity to those persons that are subbing? So I know teachers, they like if you did a great job for me, then I would want to call Mr. Leroy every time I was going to be out. So how are you going to, when you start offering these kinds of stipends, how are you going to ensure equal opportunity for everybody that's on your list to sub?
Sure. And barring some sort of disciplinary issue that has occurred, that would be something that we would share, should this become a thing, when we do our training, to make sure that they know of the stipend before it even starts in the spring. That's why we would certainly prefer it in an upcoming semester so that we could really market it to them, because really there is nothing that would,
So when Frontline is taking care of assigning a sub, is that like a random thing? Like if you have an accident, the tow trucking companies, they kind of equal that out for everybody. So I guess my question is,
is that an opportunity where everybody has the exact same opportunity to sub?
It is, yes, ma'am.
And
Well, you
teachers-
can,
It's not.
but you can do your favorite five, so
Yeah.
you can
Right,
put
that's
in
what I was
your-
about to say. So
you-
teachers are still choosing
They
their
are,
favorites.
yeah, but in
Not
terms-
everybody.
Well,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
they're smart.
But at the numbers that we have, there would be opportunities, as they have been to this
Right.
point, for everyone, because the Fab Five is not the only five that are
Right.
called. I think it cycles through a multiple times, I don't know how many times actually, and then it shotguns it out to everyone else.
They
So-
can also see them and sign up early too. If I know I'm gonna be out in 2 weeks, and I can list it on there, and they can pick it up and go ahead and get it, so there are opportunities there. And
I fully understand your question, and I do think it's good for us to think about that, but at the same time, I want the best subs in the classroom. So if a teacher does
Yeah, me
like
too.
a particular sub, I want them to
Absolutely.
choose that sub if that person comes in and does a good job every day. So I don't know that and right now, in the market right now, there's not a single sub in our district who couldn't reach these milestones if they wanted to, because we have vacancies every day if they're willing to come.
And it might encourage them to
It
take more
may.
positions.
hopefully.
Any other questions?
Anyone else have anything?
Is this something we want to take?
I was gonna say, is everybody comfortable enough with it to, go ahead and?
Do you need a motion?
I would.
I move we approve the possible incentives.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to improve the incentive idea that we have been presented tonight, for a $200 stipend to a substitute that works between 45 and 59 days in the spring, and another $300 to anyone who works more than 60 days in the spring 2023 semester. Any more discussion on that at all?
Can that motion be for both semesters? So we
I'm
can try
sorry,
it
it
for
can be.
spring and fall?
Spring and fall semesters of 2023.
That was the intent.
Okay. Okay. Any more discussion at all? All right, all in favor? Thank you, Al. I think that's some great ideas, some great thinking on that. I sure hope that it helps improve. As Dr. Ketterman said, we do constantly hear it's difficult when you have to work your planning period because you don't have enough subs. So thank you so much for bringing that to us. And now we need to discuss our bus driver bonus, please.
And, of course, that became a controversy in the month of October, and we own part of the miscommunication that caused this controversy. But way back in January, the governor put forth his budget priorities for the state of South Carolina. And in his budget priorities, there was $12 million included for school bus driver bonus. And it was a very detailed plan for it to just be, a kind of a governor's budget priority. But it talked about bus drivers getting a bonus in August, another bonus in December, and a third bonus at the end of the year for a total of $2,000, so $660 some odd 3 times a year. The State Department of Education Office of Transportation publicized this to the transportation offices in school districts around the state. And of course, I've learned, educating myself after this controversy came up, the governor's budget priorities really, they're priorities and he can publicize them, but he doesn't create the budget for the state of South Carolina. The House of Representatives does. And the governor's budget priority in this particular case never even made it to the state budget. So it was communicated from the governor's office and then from the State Department of Education Office of Transportation. And we, and I say we as a school district, leadership in the school district was under the impression that was going to happen as well, the $2,000 bonus. And we communicated that to our bus drivers as late as August. They rightly thought they were getting a $2,000 bonus. Part of this conversation Also included just a comparison of our local districts and how bus drivers are paid. And we did look at the 5 Anderson districts, Pickens, and ourselves, and rates of pay. And our bus drivers, we do need to do some work on that for next year to get our hourly rates more competitive in the 7 districts in the AOP region. For the fact that we did miscommunicate, not solely the school district, but we didn't communicate that that bonus did not make it into the state of South Carolina budget. Many of our bus drivers were counting on that, and the fact that our hourly rates of pay are a little bit below where I would like for them to be. I would like to recommend that we follow through and pay that bonus to our bus drivers. And I would like to specifically recommend, because of the way it was communicated, that there would be a payment in August, another one in December. I'd like to say 2/3 of that $2,000 bonus would be paid as soon as possible. And that would be paid to any bus driver who returned from last year to this year and has been driving from the end of last year up to the present time. And then the remaining third of that bonus, I would recommend that we pay that at the end of the school year, and that we would pay that 1/3 of the $2,000 bonus to any driver who drives for us for the entirety of the school year, that started with us in August and works for us through the end of the school year. So that would be honoring that full $2,000 bonus that was part of the governor's priority. Then any part-time driver would get, my recommendation to you would be the same percentage that they work. So if it's a half-time driver, they would get half of the bonus if they, or any prorated portion of their employment. And when we do say full-time, of course, for bus drivers, that means for us a 6-hour employee. We have bus drivers work 6 hours. It's typically 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, but that qualifies them as full-time for benefits purposes. So that's what I'm referring to when I say full-time drivers. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but the short of it is that I didn't do a good job clearing up miscommunication that occurred, and I would like to honor that by following through with this bonus that was communicated to our bus drivers, again, as early as January and as late as August.
Do we have a rough total as to what this liability will be?
82 drivers, so there would be a small amount of benefits added to that.
You can round up to about 185,000.
Does anyone else have questions at this time? Again, this is something for possible action. So I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the district pay the $2,000 bonus to bus drivers as follows. 2/3 payment, $1,333 paid as soon as possible to all full-time bus drivers returning from last year. The remaining 1/3, which would be $667, paid at the end of the school year to all drivers who worked for the entire 2022-23 school year. And part-time drivers would get a prorated portion of their pay, of their time worked.
So I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion, any more question? We know about what it's gonna cost?
I was at the meeting at West Oak with Dr. Thorsland when he met with the bus drivers. And he did a really outstanding job, he and Steve, of explaining to them, and we had a really good discussion. And I think that under the circumstances, because of the misunderstanding, I'll put it that way, This would be a good thing. I think it's a pat on the back to our drivers who have a tremendously hard job to begin with.
Our drivers.
Absolutely. Anyone else? All right, this time we'll call the question. All in favor? All right.
Thank you. I think that's, I appreciate that, and I think it will make our bus drivers feel very positive. And I do want to just publicly say too, as I told them in the meetings, our goal for all different groups of employees in the school district is that we're very competitive in our seven school district, 3-county area. And we do have some work to do on bus driver salaries. We also have work to do on first-year teacher salaries. We're a little bit behind where we want to be on first-year teacher salaries. And I don't want people that would consider working in Oconee County to go to Anderson or go to Pickens because they make, a stronger salary there. I want to be competitive in the 3-county area. And so Mr. Schickling's already done quite a bit of work on that, and we'll be bringing that to you as the new year comes around as we start planning for the 23-24 budget year. We'll be bringing some salary recommendations based on those comparisons.
And at this time, we'd like to talk about an employee bonus. I know we've given employee bonuses the last 2 years, and while we can't guarantee that this is something that can be done every year, when we have an opportunity to and when the budget allows, we certainly want to thank all of our employees in Oconee County, in the school district. So, Mr. Schickling, if you could give us a report on that, please.
Sure. So I was asked to prepare, a cost per $100 of bonus for the board's consideration. So I've done that, and I've also put together a history of the financial performance of the district just from a long-term budgetary perspective. So for the board's consideration, we have roughly 1,500 employees, 1,526, when I ran that report of positions out of our system. And FICA is payable on a bonus, but the retirement contribution is not. It's exempted from that as a bonus. So we're looking at roughly $165,000, give or take, for every $100 of bonus for an employee. Part of that conversation in the past, from what I understand, is the district's financial position. And so at this time, we're finalizing the audit, but we know, what last year's performance looks like on a general basis. And it's largely positive news. So I will share that with the board. But I also want to put that in the context of kind of that long-term trajectory. So I've always employed the saying, budget to the middle, or things revert to the mean. And if you look at our district history over the past since 2012, so 11 years really, we've had 6 years of surplus and 5 years of deficit in terms of just the performance of revenues to expenditures. So certainly we've kind of been on a break even. At the beginning of that time period, and I draw this in reference to our policy DFAC, which is the fund balance policy, that we should maintain a minimum 20% of general expenditures in fund balance. So think of that, if we've got $100 million as a simple budget, $20 million as a cushion or available cash. So there was a point in 2012 where we were at 28%. By 2014, we were at 21.9%. By 2018, 25%. And I'm projecting that at the end of this audit, we'll be at 29%. And so this year in particular, we see a large increase in our net financial position, a surplus of roughly $9 million. Now that, again, I believe that's anomalous. And the reasons for that is there are a few factors at play. We received over $2 million in a one-time tax payment from Duke Energy as a multi-year assessment challenge was resolved. So that money had been held in reserve and was made available to us. We also are seeing money, cost, I call it cost avoidance, but costs that normally would be general fund costs that are currently being offset by federal funding in the form of the ESSER stimulus funds. So the combination of those things, and I believe also maybe some assessment growth from the recent increases in some of the resale values of homes, led to a large net increase in financial position. Those ESSER funds are going to expire in short order, and that Duke Energy one-time money is not going to be there. So some of the factors that I've also prepared for consideration, there's about 12 full-time positions that will come back to the general fund when ESSER is up, which is about $1 million of budget growth. We also have used that federal stimulus funding in various forms, CARES Act, the Recovery Act, or the American Recovery Plan, to the tune of nearly $4 million of instructional technology. So that's interactive panels in rooms, that's Chromebooks in student hands, devices for instruction in teachers' hands, and infrastructure upgrades. The lion's share of those are going to now need to be supported and are not currently components of the general fund budget. So over the course of the next few years, as we anticipate needing to replace those things, we will need to be, I would say, graduating that into our budget. So the reason that I wanted to highlight all of those things is for consideration that, it's always better to have that fund balance available in times of fluctuation, variance, economic downturns, to be able to allow us managerial flexibility to maintain programs, not have to make cuts mid-year, things like that, rather than having it not available. So I wanted to put that into context for the board. Again, we're getting near 29%, which is well in excess of our fund balance. But again, if we're considering that, we'll just call it a $100 million budget. If we get to a point, we've talked about increasing pay, maintaining that competitiveness, funding our technology initiatives. If that expense structure begins to exceed the growth in those revenues, we're going to operate at a deficit, and the only way to recover that is to cut that deficit, and then if you want to rebuild your fund balance, you have to cut more than that to build that fund balance back up. So I say that I believe it's my job to be the most conservative person at the table here, so that's why I'm bringing it up. But with those numbers in mind, I'm sure the board can engage in that conversation as to what you believe an appropriate amount would be.
Well, let me put that question right back to you, since you are the person that has the funding and know more about it. What would be your suggestion as far as a bonus is concerned for the employees, and staying within that framework of the budget that you were speaking of?
I'm happy. I don't want to step on your toes. You feel free to answer. I would, even though our fund balance is likely to grow by several $1 million this year, I think it would be a mistake to invest more than $1 million in a bonus.
I would generally agree.
So
That's for the employees now.
that's the total.
Dealing with
The number that he mentioned, for every $100 of bonus, it's going to cost $165,000. I would have a hard time recommending, but again, y'all are elected by the people. But I wouldn't recommend more than $1 million.
Quick figures at $600 would be roughly $1 million.
So, per person? That'd be a nice bonus.
It would be with the understanding, we may never be in this position again to do that marching bonus. It would be
That
nice
have to be
to
stipulated,
do
I
it at
think,
one,
yeah.
if we were able to.
And maybe 500 would be a better figure, that'd
Yeah.
keep you within, I don't know.
What was the classified levels versus full-time that we've done in the past? Have we all just done the same amount across the board?
The previous couple of years, it's been across the board. Now, we have done prorated bonuses for less than full-time work. So if you work part-time, you would get, if you work half-time, you get half the bonus. But we've not.
There was about 5 years ago that we only did it for people making below a certain amount.
Okay, so.
That's, maybe that's the one you're talking about.
To do more for.
Everybody, no matter if it's classified, certified, whatever, the amount that you determine is what we have penciled in for all employees. It doesn't vary unless you're part-time.
But generally, if you just look at teaching positions, we're somewhere around 800 to 850, somewhere in that ballpark, versus support employees would make up the remainder, so let's say 700. By the time you count, bus drivers and custodians, administrators, maintenance, all the different positions, and then also positions within the schools, teachers, assistants, secretaries, those positions, it's close to 700, 800 is.
So this would be, the bus drivers would then get an additional bonus above and beyond what's already here?
They would, and I don't, that did come up just as we were talking, but I wouldn't feel good about excluding them from something that all employees are getting. I do see this as two separate issues.
It is too simple.
I don't disagree with that.
Well, Madam Chair, I move that we approve a $600 bonus for all employees for this year.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve a $600 employee bonus for all employees this year. And I'm sure this will be paid in December. Any more discussion, any questions at all? All right, all in favor? All right.
Now, we just want to clarify that that's full-time and it's
Full-time
prorated
employees.
on any other employee. That's the intent, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mr. Schiefling, thank you for that information, because it certainly does put in perspective some things that are coming up for us. It sounds great this year, but Esther's not here anymore, or won't be. Thank you very much. All right. The next action item that we have on our agenda is for the South Carolina School Board Associated voting delegates. This meeting is on Saturday, December 3rd. I believe it's in the afternoon. So we need to decide. We have 4 voting positions. Then we also have alternates. So we need to today declare who those delegates are. Dr. Sloan? Okay. Dr. Sloan will go in as a voting delegate. Dr. Ketterman?
I will.
Okay. This may be too soon to ask you.
I'll do whatever you need me to do.
Well, I think that would be good if you would like to go in as a voting delegate. I think it's an informative session, so.
So all 5 of you are attending.
I'll be the alternate.
And I'm still not sure. I would like to be put down as an alternate so I can go in.
Okay, are you attending, Mr. Harrington? Okay. Should we put,
Maybe since Dr. Ketterman is vice chair, go ahead and let her have 2.
2?
2.
She gets a proxy and herself, and then Ms. Holder and Dr. Sloan get a voting. Ms. Bay, you got that?
Okay.
If y'all-
All right, so we have, I just need a motion from someone to approve the voting delegates as we have named them.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? All right. Then other action items we have second reading for final approval on a number of policies. I know we've gone over these several times. Did anyone have anything to add to any of these? Does anybody have any questions on them? I think we've been over them and over them. Yeah. All right,
They're all second reading.
yeah, let's just group them all together since they're all second readings. So, I will need a motion for second reading, final approval on policy JQ, student fees, fines, and charges, policy EF-R, food services, policy IHAC, social studies education, policy IMDA, patriotic exercises, policy IMDB, flag displays, motto displays, and policy JJI, interscholastic athletics.
So moved. Do I have to say all that again?
No, it just has to be in there one time for the record. All right, Mr. Herring has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have a second? Any discussion at all? All in favor? Great. Who's got to talk to? All right, and we have a section now that we, give the board an opportunity to speak. So, board member comment time is now, if anyone has anything they would like to, publicly address.
Personally, in hopes that, the Seneca City would be here at this time, but I just wanted to ask them if we would be privy to their master plan.
We can certainly contact
Okay.
Mr. Mulder and see if we could get a copy of that for you.
We'll reach out to him.
Be happy to do that.
Okay, and just for the record, it was referenced that I made the statement to the Journal that my voice is marginalized, and I just want to say for the record to make it clear that my voice is not marginalized on the board, that was just a general statement for the population. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
The only thing I would like to say is this is American Education Week, and our teachers are all getting lunch this week, which I think is terrific, and I don't know, I've lost count of the number of thank yous from our teachers, but I do think that they are all very, very thankful for what we have done for them for this particular week, and we certainly appreciate all of our teachers very much, and hope that they enjoy their lunch this week. Anything else? All right, at this time, I will accept a motion to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is second to go into executive session for personnel items, employment recommendations, and changes. All in favor? All right.